I think, than anybody I can put a name to promote our sport.
The archer who owns all the world records, John Demmer III.
You know, the more difficult a thing is, the more important the mental game becomes.
I didn't eat any supper yet either. How about you guys? Did you guys eat yet?
I didn't eat
Oh,
that.
you know,
I got some crunch berries.
Oh, yeah.
Grayson Barlow.
It's like me taking 3 or 4 years off your eyes just because I weakened that prescription in the shooting eye.
And don't put everything into my shot that I should, that I get a lot of drop on those heavy arrows. It's dropping all the way down. He said, well, you might want to think about going to a lighter arrow and string walking. And that's what got that started. So.
Shooter.
Oh boy.
Avoidable.
Edit yourselves.
Thanks. Yep. Yeah, I know. Yeah. Going live right now, boys. How are you? We just got done BSing for the last, I don't know. Sorry we're late, everyone. I guess people were messaging Matt saying, why are you guys at? Well, here's the thing. We get to have conversations that are off camera and not recorded, and you are not privy to those conversations because we can't put that out in the public. But it's good to see you guys, man. I'm not gonna lie, I kind of miss you guys. We had such a good time and spent so much time together over the last few weeks. How's it going, Maddie? What's good? You're back in Colorado now, huh?
Back in Colorado. We took an extra week after nationals, visit my family up in New York City, Staten Island, and like I said, did some stuff at the Jersey Shore, and we went to Great Adventure, which was the best. We had the best day, best weather, went on all the rides. I love that stuff. I miss it. We used to do it as kids, and you know, it's fun to just take Julie there to do that stuff. You know, she really enjoys it too. Same thing with the boardwalk, like going to the Seaside Heights. And there's way better beaches there, I know, but that's what we did when we were kids and teenagers. And when we could drive, we'd go there during the summer, and we loved it. And we had a great time. And then we drove home because we drove out to nationals, and it was 14 hours from Staten Island to St. Louis, hung out with our aunt and uncle, and then we drove another 13 back to Colorado. It was exhausting, but we got home last Friday, so we had the whole weekend to kind of decompress and chill. And but yeah, we're back and things are fun.
Good stuff, man. John, I know we were just talking about your garden a little bit, but you got a chance to play with the XD. I know you're not shooting a ton, but like, you happy? You like it?
Yeah, it's a nice riser. I think it's a little bit nicer than the XI. I'm looking forward to shooting it some more, and if I don't know what's coming on the horizon for any other releases, and if there's not going to be any other releases, then I'm going to be shooting that probably all indoor season.
That's a big statement. I mean, that's you know, you and the Epic is that's a hard relationship to break up. So, you know, and the XI really as well, because you're always back and forth. But yeah, that's good, man. I'm glad to hear it. I'm glad to hear it. I can't wait to get my hands on one here in the next couple of weeks. But good stuff. Well, I guess we're just gonna get right to it. All right, Maddie, because this show is Matt Yacca's show. I'm not gonna lie. He's like, we talked about it before, and then you kind of went off a little bit of a tangent on live feed when we're trying during the bronze. I think it was the bronze medal matches, and I was like, you know, like, we need to talk about this. Like, this is a show in and of itself, and you know, and it's funny because even today, like, I shot today, and I've been playing with my tab again. I remember I told you I was going back to that single strap situation. Freaking thing kept coming loose on me today, and I've been playing around with it. I think I finally have everything squared away, but that's one of those things, like, you have to test that in a tournament before you're going to know if it's going to work the way you have it set up or not. And it didn't work, I will tell you that, but I have it figured out now. Shout out to Rob Yanni, because he hooked me up with a thing like I don't know what you call them, like the things that are on the Yost tab to keep the cord tight.
It's like a bungee. Like a bungee pair.
Yeah, like the button. Yeah, the
button. Okay.
So, but I ended up taking. I told everyone, like, I'm trying to one of those. I want to get away from the 3-finger because it's honestly, it's just a pain in the ass. I taking it on and off. I just get tired of it. And the stuff I had just kept stretching out. Had to replace it, had to move it. And I'm like, gosh, it's like you're constantly, I feel like I'm constantly going through it. So I got, it's probably a 1/2 inch. It's probably a 1/2 inch wide. Yeah. Yeah, Matt, you know where my brain went there. I was like, it's not, I shouldn't be saying that on live feed.
You can talk the truth, right?
Yeah.
We don't care.
It's a nylon strap. Like I am ignoring the conversation at the moment. Like something like this, my backpack here. You know, it's an actual like really good nylon strap, but it's like a 1/2 inch wide, and I ran that through because that's, if it's wider, almost like, you know, having a ring, like it's wider and it's more stable. I'll be honest with you, when that's tight with when it's all tightened up, it feels the same as it did with the 3-finger. So I'm actually pretty pumped about it. I just have to find more of that size strap. So I know a couple other people in my circle here are gonna try it, and I'm gonna make that Yost tab adaptation because, you know, again, it's a wider strap on your finger, and it doesn't let there's no extra movement, and you can still spin it around the back of your fingers and pull your arrows and all that other mumbo jumbo. But I needed to try it in the tournament and to really get an idea, like, is this thing gonna last? And I had it spun down below the plate and pulled out the bottom, but it would come loose on every arrow. I couldn't keep it tight. So I ended up just doing it the same way as your regular Yost. It's just a different strap that's more stiff and stable. But anyway, so.
And I use a similar strap system, and I take my tab off after each end. I love that strap system versus the single string or the bungee.
Yeah.
I like that strap system. It just, this system happens to move a lot, and I don't really care for that.
Yeah,
I like
I'm the
same strap system because it's stable.
Yep, that's exactly what I was doing too. But I keep stretching out, and I think it could just be the quality of the stuff that it stretches out too much. Like you take it on, you have to stretch it to take it off, and stretch it to put it on, and it's just you're back and forth, and I just like I wanted to try to find something that was maybe like an in between. And now that thicker, more, and I didn't take a picture of it. I'll either make a video or send it out. But when I put that on there, like, and made it tight, it felt the same. It didn't move. And I think it's because that strap is that much. It's like a ring, you know, it's so much wider. It doesn't go anywhere. But again, John shoots the good old fashioned Yost bungee, and you know, it obviously doesn't matter for him. So it's just a personal preference thing. But
well, when you hold your tab right, when you hold your tab right in the first place,
put your tab on and just shoot. That's what it should. So, all right, this is episode 67 ish, and this episode is all about avoidable tournament mistakes, avoidable tournament mishaps, very avoidable things that you can control that won't cost you points during a qualification, a match, a head-to-head, whatever. Matt Yacca, where do you want to start, man? Where do you want to start?
I'm going to start with Robbie Weisinger, who just called me, and I had to hang up on him. The kid calls me, 3 times a day. I'm his dad, for crying out loud. I'm going to.
Did he have his shirt on or off?
Yeah.
Was his shirt on or off?
I don't know. He FaceTimed me. I hung up on him. I didn't answer the call. Robbie, you get Robbie on here too if you want. But I'm going to start with Robbie, and the reason I say that is, and I asked him for permission. I said, Robbie, do you care if I talk about this? Because we're going to do the podcast. And he said, no, absolutely. He goes, if it helps other people, he goes, that's what we're all about, right? So we want to, get the message out there as to why we do this podcast, or why we have these conversations, is to help others, right? Not just,
right.
That's the greatest thing about Barebow and this family, is that we don't really have secrets from each other. We are truly here to help each other. Starting with John, John, since I've known him, very helpful to everybody. Everybody I've ever met in this, I'll just keep using that term, family, has been very helpful. in talking to others, whether the information is exactly accurate, perfect, or the way it needs to be, or people just trying to be helpful, whether they know or don't know, I don't know. But Robbie's message was, yes, if this information is going to help others, tell them this story. We have, and it starts with Robbie this past summer when we did field nationals and we did team trials for this upcoming world championships we're going to be doing the first week of October, which is about a month. Robbie kicked ass pretty much through the entire shoot, right? So Robbie won. He took gold at nationals. He did not lead day one. There was some other guy who was leading, and then we got flighted on day two, and it was that guy. I'm sorry, I forgot your name. That guy, Robbie, myself, and Stonebreaker.
Oh, Ryan Davis, maybe.
No, it wasn't Ryan. No, it was. So that's how it ended up. It was me, Ryan Davis, Robbie, and this other guy. And then
Okay.
Rick was right behind us. He was in second flight. He was in the next. Gosh, I don't know, Frank, if you want to look it up, the kid's name. He was kicking ass. He was like 20 points ahead of everybody after day one, which was unmarked round. So day two, we get flighted together, and Robbie did well enough. It was crazy. We had quite the fluctuation of people moving around, and Robbie, even though held his position, this guy who was in first really fell far down the ladder on marked day. But when we were getting to the nuts and bolts of everything, and then we started shooting for the team trials, Robbie made two mistakes that cost him big points. And that's how this whole thing started. I'm like, wow, we need to start talking about this stuff in podcasts or in general and getting information out there. Mistake number one was we move up to a target, and it was the 4 targets. So it was, top, you have left, right, top, left, right, bottom. And Robbie was up first, and he was shooting, I believe, if I remember correctly, he was shooting left top. And he stepped up to the stake, and it was an easy shot. It was a 25-meter shot. Robbie stepped up, and he shot my target, and he shot one below. And I looked, and then Ryan Davis was sitting next to me, and we kind of looked at each other, and we were like, did he do the wrong thing? And I was like, dude, hold out. I said, look at your target. And he dropped the F-bomb and realized that he had shot the wrong target, which, we can't go, it's okay, dude, mulligan, you know how that goes. We all play by the rules. We all play fair, and he knew he had to eat that one. So he shot his other arrows at his correct target, and it's a simple mistake. And just what happens here is that simple paying attention in things like field archery. It's more important in that realm, right? Because there's a lot going on. Which target are you shooting at? When do you shoot? You got to play that correctly. And so it was a simple mistake. It was the only time I saw it happen, but it happened. Later on, down the end of the match, we were shooting again, and he stepped up to another stake. It was like a 40-yard shot. Yeah, it was a 40-yard shot, and he stepped up, and he shot, and it hit pretty high. Like, it was on one of the bigger targets, of course, and he shot a foot high. And I thought he just crawled wrong. He crawled incorrectly. And he shook his head, and he's like, okay, but those are points, right? You're talking 4 or 5 points at a time. Every time you do that in field, that can, you're toggling people around pretty quickly. And he shot, he drew up again and shot, and he almost hit his arrow in the same spot about a foot high. And I'm looking at him. He turned and looked at me, and I'm like, I looked at him, and then he looked down at the stake. So mark day, our stakes are marked, and he looked down at the stake, and it was a 40-yard, and he was shooting for 50, right? So it was a very simple mistake. It's like one of those things we look at, and okay, it's 50, and when we know, we go to our crawl, and that'll bring me to one more thing, and then you can interject as you see fit. So he shot 2 arrows, hit a 1, I think on both of them. And then on his last one, he shot up, like a 4 or 5. I can't remember exactly, but big points that cost him right there, just because he didn't simply pay attention to that stake. And then one more on this same note is the tab, right? So I made this mistake twice on the easiest targets. And it was because, you know, again, we're a friendly group, especially Robbie and I, you know, we're such good friends. We chit chat, we have a good time with each other. And it was a 5-meter shot. And it was like, you know, they're not gimmies by any means. They're not. But when you crawl to a 10 on your 5, now you're, you know, yeah, sure, we're shooting at that thing. It's this big, you know, you're hitting here versus here. That little dot is tiny. And that's eating points. Oh, the kid's name was Cole, by the way.
Yeah,
Cole.
Robbie, but Cole, is it, does his last name begin with a D?
I don't remember, but his name is Cole.
Okay. Yeah, anyways, no words.
Anyway, so simple mistake, you know, I go up and you know, if I look at now, what I ended up doing was if I get to my tab, I'm just for argument's sake, let's just say this one's my 5 and 2 up is my 10. I would go and just instantly grab that 5, take the shot, instantly grab that 5, take the shot. And at this kid, the first time I made the mistake, Robbie distracted me. He's like, don't screw it up, dude. You know, like one of those. And I turned and looked at him, whatever. And I put my fingernail on the 10 and I shot it for 10 and that arrow just hit high, right? So it's just screwed me up just a little bit. And so one of that thing, what that did to me was taught me to not out loud, but I'll just say 5, 10, whatever, you know, just nice and quiet. Mm-hmm. And what now I do is I go 5, 10, 15, 20, whatever, to the one I need to go to 5, 10, 15, 20. And I say it 3 times, 5, 10, whatever. And I stop on where I need to be saying the mark as I touch the mark. And then I know that I'm in the right one. That's a simple mistake, right? And it all comes about where if you ever read any books about being nervous, with winning in mind, I don't know, any of the Basha books, any books that keep you from just being nervous. You can't control outside stuff, right? We can't control who's watching us. People could be standing there like this, Demmer, you and your damn freaking scope watching me shoot. That made me nervous, right? We talked about that one time. But now we know we can't control those things, but these are the things we can control. Things like our equipment, tabs, looking at, you know, the markers and taking the shots at the correct distance.
Yeah.
And we have a list of these things, by the way.
Yeah, we do have a list, but I think there's going to be a lot of ad lib to this because as you're talking about the field stuff, so, you know, I shot NFAA field nationals for the first time ever. It's the first field I ever shot Barebow, you know, and John was helping me. We went to practice day, and the first thing I'm going to talk about has nothing to do with archery. It has to do with hydration because it was like the hottest week in Pennsylvania that we had all year long.
Can we stop for a second?
Go ahead.
Because we're going on a tangent here.
Oh yeah.
I want to go back to what Maddie was saying.
Oh, go ahead.
So you gave the problems. So let's give them a solution on how to fix stuff like that. So usually what happens when you're in the field archery, when you go up in pairs, usually kind of like every shot I've shot, every shoot I've shot, even like a world championship level, like you're competitors, but you're almost always like working together. Like it could be saying like, well, in the world championship, you're always shooting with a different country. And a lot of things we do, like with Frank for the NFAA stuff, when you're first up, usually what happens is, all right, we're top target, right? Yep, top target. Okay. And then we go from there. If we're on the bunny target where we got columns, we're first and third, right? Yep, first and third. So like it's a confirmation of things so you don't screw up and shoot the wrong target. And then the second thing, just like you said, on the unmarked, we're not allowed to talk about distance, right? Until everything's shot. But the marked distances we're allowed to. So, you know, you get up to the stake, you're like, okay, 40 meters. 40 meters. Okay, 40 meters. So you crawl the 40 meters. You're not going to screw it up because you just told yourself 40 meters. And on the unmarked, you're like, however you judge your distance, whether you bracket or just go off a line of sight or whatever, in your mind, say it in your mind. Okay, this one's 35 meters. Okay, 35 meters. Okay, and then count however you normally count. You know, I go on the 10s. I go 10, 20, 30, 35. And so I'll do that. Like it's set in my mind how far it is. I set it 2 or 3 times so I can't forget it. And then I crawl it 20, 30, 35. Okay. So that's ways to combat that is reassuring vocally or just mentally on what target you're shooting when you step up the stake, and make it a habit. Make it a habit. Even if you're the second group up and you're shooting bottoms, you just say, okay, shooting bottoms. That'd be the first thing you do when you step up the line.
Yep.
Same thing if you're shooting tops, step up the line. Okay, shooting tops. And that way you're never going to screw up and shoot the wrong target. This guy shot the wrong target at a world championship and missed.
You shot the wrong
shooting.
target at nationals.
Yeah. Well, NFA is different. It's annoying.
I know.
And that's annoying. But I shot the wrong target at one of the world championships, and I missed shooting for the team because I lost my spot to Ben 2 points.
Oh, because you shot the wrong
shot a 5 on the wrong target. Yep.
Easy fix, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
That was prior to that was the first one I ever did. So there's a lot of trials and tribulations to work through.
The reason I was kind of going back to NFAA and to kind of to go one step ahead of even getting yourself to a point where these mistakes can be made was the hydration, because if you in those situations, because if you get dehydrated, like I woke up with a headache the next day. So not only is I thought it was just allergies, but then at some point throughout the day, my vision started to blur. And I talk about all the time, my glasses, if I have my left eye blanked out, everything's clear. It was blurry. Tip of the arrow was blurry. Target was blurry. Can't shoot that way. And I was like, you start making more mistakes on those small things when you aren't staying ahead of your hydration and all the other stuff. I had to learn it the hard way. If you notice, like even all of us now, and even like John will walk through the house and he's like, hey, did you drink water? Maddie like, hey, did you drink water? You guys have Scott brought liquid IV, I think it was, or something like that, those packets, and all that stuff. Like that's a very preventable a thing that you can do that you're doing that has nothing to do with archery, just like getting sleep and eating good food and all that other stuff that will help you to not make all of these very simple mistakes that can cost you points throughout the entire weekend or tournament or whatever.
Yeah, and it's good hydration too, not just water. Water's not really that good. That goes right through your system and flushes right out. But
and that's what I did the first day. I was just pounding water. I'm like, oh yeah, it should be good. And you're like, and you were like, no, here, take this.
You're like, Pedialyte, drink it.
Yeah,
I'm gonna watch you. You better drink it.
And I mean, and I've never gotten dehydrated before, at least that I know of. And that was the first time, and it was the weirdest thing. Like Maddie, when you go and you look at your tab and you count, and you're like 5, 10, 15, 5, 10, 15. There's moments where during that weekend where while I was struggling with that, where I was doing it and I just couldn't comprehend, like, where the hell is this crawl at? And it's probably why. And I didn't even realize it. And it's such an easy thing. And so, I mean, yeah. And kudos to Tara Demmer, because she packed him full of all kinds of stuff for NFAA, and thank God he had it, because it made a world of difference. And you're never going to, Larry Wise told me this one time, you're never going to catch up on hydration. You need to start the day bore, and then
2 days before.
Yeah, 2 days before, I guess, is a rule of thumb.
Yep. There's definitely I don't know if you guys are into podcasts, but I'm a geek on physiology podcasts, and
sure,
that's what I do, right? So, and there is definitely an optimal level of hydration for performance, and it works out to roughly 4 ounces every 15 minutes. It's a lot of water. It's a lot. John's right. Not necessarily water. Julie and I are big fans of the liquid IV. I got turned on by a buddy of mine, Randy, and liquid IV is just one I really, really got. Like Pedialyte's a good one too. Electrolytes is not just salt and sugar and potassium. It's not salt, it's sodium. They're not the same. But you're right. And during field nationals is one of those times when I really tested that, and I was drinking nonstop. And it was like, you don't realize your lack of performance when you're dehydrated. Just don't realize it. You know,
Right.
it's dehydration is not something you realize by going, oh, I'm thirsty, I must be dehydrated. No, if you're thirsty, you're way beyond.
Way beyond, yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
you know, dehydration is a cellular level that people just don't see.
Right.
And
And
you need to keep drinking.
so after that experience, Matt, I like, even with shooting nationals, shooting at the tournament today, I walk back every end. I'm grabbing my bottle, it has the liquid IV in it, and it might not be 4 ounces. I mean, but I'm taking a drink. You know, I'm conscious. It's a conscious thing that I'm doing every end. Walk down, come back. So what's an end of shooting to, that's 4 minutes. It's probably close to like 10 to 12 minutes for the whole transition of both lines, go down, score, come back, whatever.
Yep.
And you know, and you're baking in the sun for that amount of time. You know, you have to look at it that way. And now from now on, I'll never do that again. You know, it's when it comes to shooting the wrong target, if your mind's not right and you're struggling and you're like, you know, and then you start making mistakes and you don't know what mistakes you're making, you don't know how to fix them, because and then if you start thinking about the mistakes and and you forget about drinking water or hydrating and whatever, it's such a snowball effect. And I wanted to make sure that we talked about that in depth, because it's just one of those things that can really turn into a shit show if real fast. So, but anyway, so all right. So we definitely covered some field stuff. Is there anything else you guys wanted to talk about in relationship to the field game, maybe, or any of that stuff that we've talked about?
Well, it's just shooting enough arrows. Make sure you shoot all your arrows. It's a very simple thing. Always, like, if you're shooting field for USA, it's 3 arrows. NFA, it's 4. Always keep that in your number 1 slot. Whatever your quiver is, put that in your number 1 slot, so you don't have to sit there and look through a target full of arrows and see if you count how many you shot. Always have that in that same slot. So when you look back, okay, it's empty. You shot them all. Or you look back and you're like, oh, I got one more. Yeah, make sure you shoot all your arrows. We see it every year. Someone forgets to shoot an arrow. At least one person. It's usually 2 or 3 people shoot 5 arrows for target nationals instead of 6.
Yeah, that's good. That's real good advice.
I always take 7 to the line. Just a side note.
For 50 meter, you mean?
Yeah, for 50 meter, I always take. I have a whole batch with me, but I always take 7 to the line. And the reason I do that is, and I saw it's funny because John and I, obviously you and I were shooting on the same target. I think it was like one of the first or second ends. I get up there and I'm like, I see an arrow laying on the floor. It was one of yours. You must have threw it down or something, but it was like 2 a yard in front of us. But I do that just in case I knock an arrow or something slips, or maybe a knock's broken I didn't see, and I always have 1 left. Then I know I shot all 6 arrows, and I just have 1 remaining. If I need that extra one, it's there.
Well, and having that extra arrow is also a preventable mistake, because a lot of people will go at 6 because they're like, oh, I don't want to shoot too many. But what happens if, and like that one Demer, I think you put an arrow on and you went to set your hook or whatever, and it popped off and just like shot straight out. It's too far away to pick up. I mean, it was within distance. It probably could have, but it's easier. You want to grab that other arrow, or like you said, what if you pop a knock, and you go to put that arrow on, and that knock, you can tell that knock's cracked.
Even at Target Nationals, real quick, didn't mean to cut you off, but when we were at Target Nationals, I loaded an arrow and I drew, and you can see a glare on your arrow immediately, and the glare was weird. It was like really shiny, and then it had like a rough spot, and I took it and I took it off my knock and I looked at it and held it in the light, and it was actually broken. The arrow was broken, like it was like hit by another arrow, and I could see the fibers. What I was looking at were the fibers of the carbon, and I'm like, oh man, that arrow is actually broken. But thank God I noticed that. Of course, I put it away, and then I took the knock off, of course, and then I took another one. But I had another arrow right there, but it was the same kind of scenario. I didn't realize when I inspected my arrows get hit, right? And then next thing you know, you got a broken arrow in your quiver. You didn't even know it.
Yeah, and what we when we shoot any game, really, when I pull my arrows, I look at all of the fletchings to make sure I don't have one. It's loose, especially at 50 meters. If you have an, like, if like say, you know, one pops loose or you have some contact and are starting to tear, all you need is one arrow to that fletching to come off. While it's going down there, that arrow starts to freaking corkscrew, and then you don't know where it's gonna go. And like those are preventable mistakes. Testing the nocks, like we shoot biters. You shoot biters too, Matt? Shoot biter nocks. And I shoot the pin nocks, and you can spin that arrow so that knock, it always breaks on that seam. That's where it cracks most often, the seam on the biter. You just push a little bit on that and you'll be able to tell if it's cracked or not, you know. And like there's just, those are the things, like you have to replace a bad habit with a good habit. Well, the bad habit is not checking them, the good habit is checking them. So you know, make it every arrow, every end, pulling your arrows, look at them, you know. And sometimes we probably don't, you know, or we'll miss one, but make it you know, a step in the whole process, you know. That's
I check my tape on my fletching every end. The black tape that holds them down in the front and the back, I check them every end, just in case you do start wearing that front one out, because that's it. When it pops that vein, I know where mine's going.
Low? Is it low, right?
It's going in the dirt in front of the target. It's just gonna parachute. Yeah, it's just gonna parachute and just slow right down, go straight right down into the dirt. 10 points right there.
Yeah, exactly.
For Frank, it's like 5 points, but whatever.
Oh, come on. It's still unfortunate, no matter who it is or what your score is. You don't want that to happen. It's a preventable mistake, and you don't want to bleed those points. You know, it's different where you make a bad shot, you shoot a 6, you shoot a 5, it happens, whatever, move on. You know, but that's one that you can't get back, and that's one that you could have, that could have been the most beautiful shot in the world, but you just needed to check your arrow when you were walking back from the target that end before. So all right, that's good stuff. That's again, I told you this was going to be we have this list to get through, and it's just that I knew it was going to go this way, but we can get into some other stuff. Let's talk about equipment a little bit, Matt. Let's talk about like pre-tournament equipment checks. I think is probably the best way. You and I both had issues at nationals, goofy stuff, you know, but it happens, you know. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Okay, and this is, I think, the easiest thing to control of everything we got going on, right? So assuming you're a prepared archer, you've been like you're not last minute, day before a tournament trying to figure stuff out. Assuming you have stuff figured out months in advance, and you have everything, your bow shooting exactly the way you like it shot. The tiller is correct, the brace height is correct. It comes down to marking your equipment the way it's shooting its absolute best, starting with simple things like brace height. I like my brace height at a particular spot, and what I do is I take my T-square. I actually flip mine, so I take my T-square, I put it in the throat of the grip, and I mark back the other way. A lot of people do that. Some people do it toward the plunger, but I mark it, and I actually take a Sharpie. I can go get my T-square in a minute, but I actually mark it right on the string, so I don't even have to remember or write down where, like what the exact distance is from the throat to the string. I just mark it with a pen, with a marker. And then I also do the same thing for my top and my bottom limb pocket, right? So from the limb pocket to the string, top and bottom, I want them in the exact same spot. On that day when I was shooting and everything was ideal, I marked my T-square. And then most importantly, which is what I didn't pay attention to at nationals, why this whole thing came up, is I actually mark my knock, the knots that I tie for my knock locators, if you will. I mark the whole knock locator from top to bottom. We're talking nothing, right? But I mark the bottom and I mark the top on each one. And I use the shelf of the riser as my level playing field, because the shelf doesn't move. Whereas if you put the T-square on the string, and use the button, that will move. There's too much play going on there. I should get my bow to go demonstrate this and show people what I do. But when you get to a tournament and you set your equipment up, the first thing you do is string your bow, dry fire it a couple times, or make sure those limbs are seated, and then check your brace height, check your tiller, make sure your limb bolts, of course, are tightened, make sure your weight on your riser is tightened, make sure your sling is there, make sure all the basic things that you have to do that are so easy to check that it's 100% in your control. And me, in my case, for people that don't know, in this last tournament, was my knot at the top. I should have changed. I knew weeks in advance. See, I'm a prepared archer, and I even said it to myself. I was just running late for time. I said I should reserve my string and tie new knots on. And I was like, nah, it'll be okay. And then I was getting closer and closer. And at tournament, after day one, I shot okay at day one. Day two, I started shooting crappy. And what was happening was, I don't like much play between my arrow and those two knots. And there was getting more and more play. And I'm like, usually when that happens for me, it's the bottom knot drops down. And so what I was doing was I was twisting it. But what was happening was the top knot was moving. And my knots were getting higher and higher and higher. And as we saw in my shoot-offs in the last couple of days, my arrows were going lower and lower and lower. Yeah. And Frank and I were talking, of course, and I'm like, man, my crawl is just working its way up. I don't know what the hell is going on. Well, stupid ass me, I should have taken my square and looked at my marks and my measurements, and I would have seen that those knock locators that I tied on were moving. And I would have put them where they belonged, and I would have beaten both of you and Demmer, and I would have won again, and it wouldn't have been a fluke. I beat Denver last year. Oh, man. No. But you get my point. It's just checking your equipment and, doing those little stupid things that, man, so easy. It was so stupid, right? When you look back at it, you go, man, if I just would have used the tools that I have on a regular basis and seen that the mistake I was making. But there you go.
No,
even limbs, right? Did you have a limb? Did I hear there was a limb issue? Maybe like a wrong limb, so. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Frank. But
no, you're good. I wasn't gonna say anything. You're good.
But yes, some of us are fortunate enough to have multiple setups. I brought 2 setups, and if let's say I have 2 sets of velos, and I take, 2 tops, or a top and a bottom, or a 46 and a 44. And I took the wrong limbs, and you put the wrong limbs on your riser. Don't say it doesn't happen, because it could happen. If you have multiple sets of limbs, you could put the wrong limbs on your bow, or the wrong string that you have, been shooting, whatever. I don't know.
It doesn't happen.
Lots of risk factors. It doesn't happen.
So how I combat that, because I have lots and lots of limbs. Those broadband limb savers, man, they come in so many different colors, and so I always pair up the same limb with the same color. So idea. I might be shooting green ones today. I might be shooting purple ones tomorrow, or pink ones. But yeah, piggyback off Matt a little bit, the T-square thing. I have 4 measurements on my T-square. I didn't do it this year. I got a little lazy. But the same T-square, I do a little different. I put it on the string. Mm-hmm. And then what I do is I actually put masking tape on my T-square, both this way and this way. Mm-hmm. And then I put a Sharpie mark on the masking tape. And then I cover the masking tape that's marked up with another masking tape, so that those marks never bleed and they stay the same. So I'll put this square on the string. I'll mark the plunger hole, or the plunger button, and I'll put a little Sharpie, the thickness of the plunger pin. So that's my brace height. And then where I run it off the plunger, I put a Sharpie thickness of my arrow knock. I don't do the top or bottom knocks. I actually do the hole in between the 2 knocks, and I mark the hole. And then I'll take that same T-square, I'll slide it up the string, and I'll get the top tiller, and I'll put a little line on the top of the T-square, and I'll slide it down, and I'll put a line for the bottom of the tiller T-square.
That's a good idea. I like the taping idea. He tapes it instead of marking the T-square itself, which makes sense, especially for multiple bows. But go ahead, show us what you're talking about, Manny.
Yeah, so some people do their brace height this way. Like they'll just click it in and then use, I don't know, the plunger, maybe the throat. I don't know. I do it the other way. So I go from the throat because it's hard surface,
Right.
and I make it vertical. And I don't know if you could see my mark. You could actually see the mark on that square.
Mm-hmm.
And I just kind of hold it right up, and then I know exactly where it is. So I don't have to remember that it's 9 and, you know, not hardly any, just a hair over 9, right? And same with the top and bottom. You can see I have a mark. I don't know what you can see.
Yeah,
but I have marks for top and bottom. And then what I do, the bigger one for the knot, is I use the shelf, right? So a lot of guys
look at the cheater serving. Look at the cheater serving. Look at it.
What's cheater about it? Oh, it's not way up here. So I use the shelf.
That's why he wanted to reserve it, John.
Right?
What's cheating about that? I can't see the top, and no, it doesn't matter.
No.
Anyway, so all right, so you see this hard flat surface is super easy to just push that on there.
Yeah,
that's a hard flat surface.
Yeah.
And then, you know, so what, and then I mark my knots, you know, so I'm just mark the knot exactly on that hard flat surface. So it's just super easy to do instead of clicking in, because this moves. Like if you use that button, there's too much play here. And so I don't prefer that method. I just like that hard edge.
Yeah, it makes sense.
What's your serving set at, tough guy? So you can see my knots line right up with those.
Yeah, that's good.
So when you get play in yours, what I do is I take the T-square and I just push it like the top or the bottom and hold it tight against the string.
Yeah.
So it stays.
Yeah, this way, like pull it in. You mean?
Yeah,
like
just like
string?
just enough to hold it.
Yeah.
Mine's probably like 4.5, 5 inches above the knot.
Mm-hmm.
I have a low anchor here, so at one point in time it wasn't here. It was up a little bit higher, and I had a serving like yours, so the end serving was up here, and I don't pay attention to serving like ever. So I didn't think anything of it and just changed crawl down to here because I was having a hard time getting to 50 meters when I started dropping weight a little bit, and I just didn't think anything of it. Brought it down, shoot it. I'm like, oh, perfect. All right. So now I got to crawl just a little bit and not bumping the knock anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And,
yep.
Because it ended like right here in my vision. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It created a big stink. Even though I don't see it, I don't use it.
Yeah.
But
I remember that.
And I have a separate square for a couple setups, and same with Julie. Like I do, like Julie has no idea what her brace height is or tiller or where her knock locators are. I do it for her. And so I use a different square for her. So I have one for her, so I can just look at her stuff too, because I set her stuff up and she's sticking her tongue out at me. Why don't you come here and stick your tongue out to these guys? The rest of the world's watching.
Yeah, but that's the thing though. She shouldn't. She should learn that. She can. She's more capable. And that's one less thing that you as a competitor then will have to worry about.
That's correct. Exactly what.
That's where my brain goes with that.
So Julie's the reason. So Julie's the reason why it didn't work out as well.
They're talking about you. Yeah, that's right. Because I'm paying so much attention to her, trying to help her out. I forget about my own stuff. Hey, don't use foul language here.
We're live.
It's a family show. We curse all the time. Dysfunctional family, that is. No,
we have a bunch of kindergartners as guests in the background.
No, that's all good stuff, guys. That's really good stuff for sure. But the serving thing, I mean, again, this goes back to I know we were making light of the situation a little bit, but the length of your serving, like you check it, friggin' pay attention to it, because you're gonna get to a tournament, and if that there's people in Barebow that will call you on that. We know that for fact. It's just
like the PGA Tour. You'll get people that call in like hours after the match. Hey, this person did this on that, and then the PGA will go back and review the footage and then assess a 2-stroke penalty. But yeah, even if you don't see it, just maybe someone take a video of you shooting or something that you could double check yourself.
Yeah, and understand that like 50 meters, most of us aren't crawling a ton, if at all. We all crawl a little bit, a lot of the ladies won't. That's going to bring that serving is going to be a lot lower. If you were using that string for indoor season, you have a significant crawl. It takes that serving up. So you just naturally think, oh yeah, serving's way up here, no issue. And then you go and you're no longer crawling this far and you're up against the knock. And then before you know it, it's sitting down here. You might not look at it. I don't look at it. I can't see it. But you need to pay attention to, and like I said, there is people who will call you on it, and it will come out, and it'll come out at the worst time, and it'll turn into a thing, and you don't, and be mindful of where it's at. Or if somebody would start JD3 strings, and then, because then you have somebody that's making a string that has, the serving right where it needs to be, and there's absolutely zero question that it wouldn't be legal. So good. All right.
Anything else on equipment? I got a couple more things on equipment.
I don't have anything else. Go ahead. Run with it.
It's a lot of it's tournament prep related, depending on what tournament you're shooting. But you can't, just like Maddie was saying, you can't control what other people are doing. You also can't control the weather, right? So don't show up to your 50-meter game with 5-inch feathers.
Yeah.
We get wind, you're screwed. We get rain, you're screwed. So one thing, an avoidable mistake is show up with the right gear towards the game that you're playing. Okay. Yep. If you're shooting 50 meters, show up with some sort of vane, preferably not fletching or feathers. And tab. If you mark your tabs, weatherproof your tab. Like weatherproof those markings so they can't come off in the rain.
Can you tell people how, because you have a very novel way that you do it. Can you explain people how you do it?
It's a stubborn pain in the butt way, but I shoot the Yost Predator. It's got a smooth surface. It doesn't have the lines in it. So I take just a label I get from Staples, a colored label. And if you're super fancy, you can coordinate your labels to your bow colors and whatnot. But anyway, I get those labels. I get the colored ones because they're a little bit thicker and they don't bleed as much. But I take a little bit of super glue with a one of the Loctites that's got the little brush on it, lightly coat the Yost, and then I'll cut a strip of the label and I'll stick it on it. So now the label is stuck to the tab. And just like a Leatherman knife or something could just like pry it up, but you got to use a little bit of force, but it'll pry it up. And then I'll put pencil. I'll mark my tabs with pencils because an ink pen or a marker will bleed. And the other reason why I use pencil is if I'm still making my marks and figuring marks, I can erase them and put another one back in. But I use pencil because I'll coat it with either a fingernail polish, or I'll use super glue and then quick spray it with that Bob Smith activator, and it's like instantly sealed, done. But yeah, pencil won't bleed. So I always use a pencil.
Makes sense. That's good stuff. And always have a backup tab in general. So if you have one, get yourself a second one. Make sure the straps match, which is something I'm dealing with right now. Mine don't match. And what was it? Was it
shoot your tab in
2 or 3 years? And shoot your tab in. Yeah, shoot your tab in. Don't buy a new one and let it sit in there.
Easiest when you first start practicing. If you're going out for a practice session, first 2 ends, shoot your tab in, and then go back to your gold standard. That way, after like a couple weeks, your backup tab's already shot in, and then you can work on your marks. Don't bother playing with marks while you're trying to shoot your tab in, but use it as a practice ends to shoot your tab in.
Yeah.
Yep. And they do shoot, a new tab shoots completely different than a broken in tab. I have a new student and he's got a brand new tab, and I'm like, don't worry, as you shoot, this thing will break in, the leather breaks down, it flattens out, the tab gets more comfortable, and the arrows shoot. A brand new tab for me, arrows will shoot 2 feet left. It's crazy how different they are. So a lot of times I'll take my new Barebow tabs and shoot it in the yard with a heavyweight like trad bow, like a 50-pound bow, and I'll just up close, just fling arrows into the target just to get that thing broken in. But a broken in tab, John, that's right, man, what a difference. You don't want to pull out a brand new tab. It's not going to work. I mean, it'll get you through, but it isn't going to do the job,
I use the kangaroo leather that Yost has. That's that to me is the easiest and seems to last a long time. I have 2 plus the cowhide piece, and that's it. John, I think, uses a little bit of rubber roofing. Matt, I don't know. What do you
I'm just
have?
cordovan and the
Just a
leather
cordovan?
back. Nothing.
Okay,
Yeah, I like cordovan. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
I
but
found
yeah,
the
shoot them
kangaroo
both.
creeks. The kangaroo creeks. I've learned. I've used kangaroo before, and which is interesting. So, I shot the fair weather tab when I was doing Olympic recurve, and I noticed it then. So when all of a sudden, for some reason, it would dry out, and I'd be at just like going through my motions, and I would hear like it would creak.
Really?
The tab would dry out and make like a creaky noise, like a I don't know how to explain it.
I've never heard that before.
I contacted Simon and I asked him about it, and he said just maybe because of where you live at high altitude. I'm at a very dry climate, and it's very dry here. He said the leather may have dried out a little bit. He goes, just put oil on it, and I did that. I oiled, and it did help a little bit. But I also did try his tab, the kangaroo leather, on one of my Yost tabs. I just took a piece and cut it on. I didn't know Eric had it, and it did the same thing. So it must be my altitude and my climate.
Yeah,
but kangaroo leather tends to dry out, and it actually makes a click noise, and it kind of makes me jittery because I hear that little. It's like a creak.
So you're
like,
gonna give Joel another idea. No, I'm playing Joel. Just a joke.
Just jokes.
Just jokes, everyone.
But I prefer the cordovan definitely over anything.
Yeah, that's good. That's good stuff.
I even switched when I was shooting that Fairweather tab. I actually bought cordovan, and I made a split finger cordovan, so I just couldn't get over that creak, that noise, that little. It's like a click, and it just makes me jumpy.
Yeah, you know who? I'll tell you who has Joe Kashurik has a really cool the way he sets his tabs up. That I don't know, it's not neoprene, is it? It's some like plastic, rubbery, thin piece that he cuts and puts in his tab. That's outstanding. And the reason the 2 tab thing came up, everyone, is I started to say 2-3 years ago, Target Nationals, we got literally every type of weather that you could possibly have had. And it was raining, it was miserable, there was like lightning every freaking 30 minutes. And if you try to shoot that same tab all day and it gets wet, and you don't have a system of some kind, keep your tab dry, have a backup to use, flip-flop tabs every other end if you need to, or whatever it is, then again, that's an avoidable mistake. Not being prepared for the elements, realizing you're going to bleed more points. You're already bleeding points because the weather's shitty. So let's not add to that, and have the right shoes, have rain gear, shoot in your rain gear before you get to the tournament. Just think about those things ahead of time. That's any tournament really, but go ahead.
The tabs also have screws. That's another thing I do before I left for nationals. Of course, I just go over all these little stupid things, tightening these screws in here just to make sure that they don't. Same Julie's tabs, I do the same thing with hers, and then again going back to the bow, making sure all these little guys are screwed in right. My grip, this, what my plunger stuff, the stuff holding on my rest, you name it. The collet screws, whatever. Screws are something so stupid that. If you just go through everything one time, tighten it. I think we even did it at the house that night. Just go through everything one time.
Yeah, we all did.
It's good for a long time. It'll be good for a while. Basic stuff. But if you don't think about it, you never know.
Well, I mean, you know what happens? You shoot an arrow, and you're like, boom, and you hear this twang. And you're like, man, what is that? And then you don't need those extra thoughts in your head. And I think that's one of the things I think is overlooked often. Is you don't need to be questioning things. You're there to shoot. You don't want to question anything. You don't want to question what's that noise? Is something loose? Is something happening? Because then you have other thoughts in your brain when you should be thinking about shooting the arrow, and that's it. And that's when it was a little bit of a joke. Sorry, Julie, but it was that idea of if you have to worry about somebody else too, you like, what if she has an equipment failure? How are you going to shoot your, try to, that's again, so for you and somebody who's shooting in those, like in a relationship thing, try to get that person brought up too, so that for you on the competitive side, you don't have to worry about that stuff. That's one of my hardest things, like as a coach, is knowing you got multiple shooters around and you're working with people, and like it's because it always occupies a little bit of your brain, and it's just one of those things. It's very hard to shut off, and it's anytime you have something you're questioning or you're not knowing about, or it's lingering in the back of your head, But I know John has some more equipment stuff, I think. Do you want to go over some more stuff, or are you good?
No, I think that was it.
All right, just the tab thing. And okay. All right. No, that's good. I'm going to look at the list, see where we're at.
I'm looking at it. I think we went through it.
Just about all of it. Extra tab, broken.
Oh, indoor. We did, just looking at the list. And this is stemming off, probably we should have gone right to it from outdoor. It was indoor. And then when we switch targets, right? So, we go to we'll shoot those big bales. Going back to indoor, we shoot the really big bale, and then we have 4 targets on the bale. And then a lot of times, and I've seen this in Olympic recurve, we switch halfway through, right? And then all of a sudden, you're shooting the top target when you should have been shooting the bottom target, or vice versa. A lot of times, like I think what we do at Vegas and a couple other tournaments, they give us our name cards, and we put our name cards at our target. That is very helpful, of course. If you can see that far, you can see your name down there. It is helpful. But we make that switch, and man, I've seen it. I think John, I can't remember. I think when we shot NFAA, that classic, I think you did that, or someone was on our target, did that, shot the wrong target. It may have been Chris. I can't remember. But you got 4 targets on there. You got 4 targets on there, and all of a sudden you brain fart. It's nice but if you're the first one to step up, and there's no targets in the bed, you don't recall or remember, you're not paying attention. You could simply shoot the wrong target. Just paying attention.
Field too. Well, when you switch the halfway point. I mean,
top to bottom. Yeah,
and that was like foreign to me. I'm like I forget it. And Joel was very good about it. Like when we shot together, and we're like, okay, I'm top, Frank, you're lower left. We would go run through, like John said, like the group would run through the whole, make sure, okay, everybody, we know where we're at, because especially when you get to those 5 meter, the close to peepers, like you should be walking away from that target with like an 18 or better, at least, probably a 20 if you can make 4 good shots. That's a really good target to get points back if you don't make any mistakes. It's not easy. It's not easy to do. Shooting a 20 is not easy. I'm not making it sound that way, but where you go, you make a mistake. Say you have like a like a 20 yard or something like that, and you flop one, you have an opportunity to make up those points. Let's not make the mistakes on those easy targets. Not easy. Easy is not the right word, but I think you know what I'm getting at there. So
yeah, and that back to Robbie, that those mistakes that we were talking about in the very beginning with Robbie shooting the wrong target and then shooting the wrong distance. So for people that don't know, when we had outdoor field nationals, Robbie won field nationals, and then immediately preceding, we started shooting for the World Games team trial.
Mm-hmm.
And Robbie went from first to third and allowed me to come up to first because of those mistakes. And Ryan and I at the end tied for first place. And Ryan got to go to the World Games because I didn't sign the waiver. And that was a whole story for me and Robbie. I wanted nothing more than for Robbie to be able to go to World Games. I was like, Robbie, it's all you, dude. Like, I'm not even going to sign the waiver, so don't even worry about it. I don't want that pressure for you. And he didn't even, after that whole thing, Robbie fell 2 places down and didn't even have the chance because it was only 1 spot. We only had 1 place for World Games.
Right.
But those simple mistakes cost Robbie that trip to go to World Games.
Yeah, simple mistakes, avoidable tournament mistakes is what they are. I think we covered the list. What's going to happen is, in passing or in conversation, like, oh, we should have talked about this, or oh, we should have talked about that. So we'll have to keep a running list going or something, and just do a part 2, because we could probably continue to hammer on this for hours, and talk about all the disciplines, or even maybe take it a step further beyond the mistake component and just like preparation component, you know, and try to, I don't know. We'll see what the response is to this one. I think this one will help a lot of people though. I can't think of anything else off the top of my head right now. John, you got anything? You good?
I'm good.
You good? Maddie, you good? You're good. All right.
I'm good.
I don't know. I don't know what else.
Oh,
I think we covered it all. Let me quick run
Yeah.
through the comments. Let me see if there's any. Santo. Let's see here. Got a couple of people say they glue their knock sets. I do not glue my knock sets.
I don't glue mine either.
I like to be able to adjust them if I have to. I do tie. I actually stopped. I used to tie mine where they come through the middle. I now tie mine, I think like John does, where they come out, where the ends come out on the end, because it just seems like it stays better.
Here's a quick tip. I think I saw Steve Weiler do this. He actually takes, I use the blue glue for my knock points, or for my points in my arrows.
Oh yeah.
I saw a thing where Steve Weiler he's like down with that. Steve
Blue
Weiler,
glue.
I actually
Blue
saw,
glue, yeah.
so I actually saw Steve he takes what he ties his knots with, the string he ties, and he runs the blue glue on it. And then when he ties his knots, he heats the knot, and that blue glue that's on the knot kind of melts in, and it's a softer glue. It's a softer hold. I thought that was kind of a cool tip. I'm going to start trying that. I usually serve my knots, and I just didn't do it for this tournament. I don't know what the hell I was thinking, but I was like, oh, the knots will be fine, and they weren't. I couldn't believe it. The freaking knot moved. But serving your knot is another really good tip. Like, serve your knots. They do not move when you serve them. Like, you know, nice and long where it gets like right under your eye.
Yeah, I mean, you want to make them longer. I mean,
no, there is a limit. Be careful what you're saying, because there's a world archery limit. It's like,
is there
5 millimeters or something? It's really, yes. There, if you look in, there's
how many wraps?
A knot limit.
I wonder how many wraps that is. It's probably the easiest way to remember it, because we don't.
We're probably all shooting illegal
stuff. Yeah, you're probably right. Somebody will, you shouldn't have said that, because now I can think of someone who shall remain nameless at the moment. They'll be running up and down the line measuring people's knock.
Pull out the caliper.
Yeah. This is illegal. Disqualified.
I do have one more. I do have another tip, and this is not necessarily a tip, but the very first time I shot Vegas and the very first time I shot Lancaster, ill-prepared, my very first time kind of stuff, I was shooting, when I shot Vegas, I was shooting, again, blue glue points glued in, and the Morel targets, which are mesh, which they use, when you're pulling an arrow out, if you have any lip on the point, it catches the point as you're pulling out. Yeah. And I did. And my very first Vegas tournament, I lost all of my points in the practice targets, in the practice bail. So I'm pulling, and they're coming out. I'm like pulling out hollow shafts, and I'm like, so that's when I met John Wirt, by the way.
Blue glue.
Like, blue glue. So that's when I met John Wirt, by the way, and he fixed all my arrows free of charge. Love John Wirt, of course. He's like, yeah, I'll take care of these for you, and he fixed my arrows for me. But blue glue.
And that, I remember, I wasn't there for the conversation, but I was there for the aftermath, where I think Wirt actually introduced us and said, hey, this is Maddie. He should be shooting Barebow.
Probably that's probably how it went. And I switched over not too long after. It was John Wirt that convinced me to shoot.
I think that was Vegas. It was
Vegas, yeah.
And that's where we peed next to each other.
That was Vegas. That's right. That's how we met.
Oh, it's so sweet.
Straight out of the urinal.
I love telling that story.
Hey, how'd you meet John Deverett? Well, we were all the dicks hang out. Oh man, this podcast went the wrong direction fast.
I gotta say, that moment that we met, I wasn't the one with flat or shyness.
That's right. I just stood there holding myself the whole time.
These conversations you will never see these conversations on the push. I will tell you that much.
That was funny.
Oh my God. It's funny.
And as soon as we were done, I'm like, all right, well, I'm just standing here. He's done. He goes and washes his hands. I'm like, I'm going to go wash my hands. And then we shook hands. And then we're still laughing about the whole thing. And we go out and meet Julie. I wanted to introduce John to Julie. And then I told her the story. And we were all laughing. And Julie goes, well, did he wash his hands? And John's like, yeah, I watched him. He washed his hands.
Oh, people, if you guys could, you have no idea the conversations that go on between us, especially in person when we're all together. It's crazy. Anyway, all right, before this gets darker and weirder, I don't think we need to I don't think we have anything else unless you guys just want to BS some more. But thanks for coming on. I think we covered a ton of stuff, and we all know better, but we still have these moments, moments of laziness, we'll call it, weakness, whatever. We got a quick question. Matt Reisman said, do you guys keep spare arrow rests set up? Matt, the three of us all have backup bows that are pretty much identical or shoot the same. I try to set mine up so I can shoot the same arrows, same setup, same brace height, same tiller, same, everything's set up identical. Not everybody has that luxury. So, I've also watched John take the same bow, rip it apart, throw a new, like, just on the fly, make changes, but he knows his equipment better than anyone. And probably anybody in Barebow can just make adjustments on the fly. But Matty, I know you have two setups, probably multiple at this point. You set up the same for the different games, right?
Yeah, excuse me. Yes, but I have two set up for 50 meter that we just did.
Yeah.
And that was just by happenstance, because I was like, I took my field set up and I was like, all right, I'm going to set another bow up just for extra for 50 meter. But now I have one for field, one for 3D, one for target, one for indoor. Yes, I'm blessed. Thank you, Doug Denton.
Yes, thank you, Doug Denton.
You should have two for field now because that's your next big one.
Well, so I might take my 3D bow because I'm not going to Italy. So I'll take my 3D bow and use that for a field backup.
Gotcha. Yeah. So,
but I am going to
Yacca. Oh, Chile.
Yeah.
Is Franklin going to Chile?
I'll know tomorrow.
I don't know yet.
You'll know tomorrow.
Hey, I know of someone else nipping at your heels. I don't know if I should spill that bean right now.
It doesn't matter. Yeah, it doesn't matter. It's fine. If it happens, it happens. But that's yes. So wow. I mean, we're talking about it. So Americans will be sent. Team USA will be sending 4 men and 4 women barebow shooters to Chile, Santiago. I think that's where it's at. Santiago,
Chile,
in November.
Nice.
So Barebow's going to get a chance to shoot at the Pan American Games. It's a 50 meter tournament, right? Yeah, 50 meter only. And it's November 21st to the 27th. Right now, there are 3 people confirmed. Matt Yacca.
6 men, 3 women.
I'm sorry, 4, and men and women. Matt, Rick Stonebreaker, and Marcus Cooley. And I am the 4th right now. I'm 99.9% sure it's a yes, but I have a meeting tomorrow. So with my boss, it's a work thing. So it's gonna make everything's, but anyway, so it'd be cool. And then women too, we got Fawn. We have, oh my God.
Amy Cooley.
Chrissy. Who was the other one?
Amy Cooley.
Amy Cooley. Oh, and Maggie.
Susan Snyder.
Oh, well, Maggie also put yes, so that might change things.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so I don't know how that works out.
Yeah, I don't know where she's at in the rank because she should be up there.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Susan should be in there because I think Susan was like 3rd.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, Susan definitely. I don't know where Amy is and Maggie. I don't know where they are. So it just depends on who's. But if for some reason I don't go, like you said, there's I don't know who's behind. I'm sure whoever it is, it doesn't matter. We're still gonna have people going, and the format of that, all 4 shoot, all 4 compete in individuals. Top 3 men. We reached out to Letitia and we were talking about this. Top 3 men will then do the male team and top 3 women will do male team, and then the top individual male score will shoot with the top female score in the mixed team competition. So that's the way that works. But it's, excuse me, it's just an honor to have the opportunity. To be honest with you, I'm pretty pumped about it. I'm just happy to even have the opportunity if it happens at all. So, but yeah, it's pretty exciting for Barebow. It's a big deal. It's a big deal.
Huge. I'm
For
super
sure.
excited.
Yeah, definitely. So, all right, that's it. Mad Demmer and Fatty Matty, we're gonna bounce. All right.
All right, kids.
All right. See you guys. Barebow Project out. Peace.